Marcus Sweetser.
I mean, the jury told me afterwards they would have given more. We asked for $260,000 for the chronic kind of dull pain with no objective findings, and the jury came back and awarded $265,000.
You apply this to all of your cases now in your practice, and has it helped to streamline the way you look at cases when you get a new case in, or when you go back and look at old cases or cases that you're working up? Does it help you to organize and streamline the way you're doing things?
Yes, it is something that I'm constantly going back to. And, I remember one time, holding all these pieces kind of in front of you and moving things here and there and kind of holding that picture together and knowing where things are going to fit. Throughout the trial, I remember I already had the closing kind of done, but as they were doing things that I knew might resonate, it's just, that'll go right there, that'll go right there. And by the time closing came, the defense attorney walked in with bloodshot eyes from being up all night, and I was sitting there, relaxed, ready to go. So yes, it's empowering. Trial structure was something that I kind of fell into. It was recommended to me by a colleague, and he said it was well worth the time and the investment. I signed up. I had a trial coming up. It was going to be my first trial. Most of the trials had been settled prior to trial over my first 2 years, but this one I knew was going to go. And I think I was about a month out from trial when I first came to the trial structuring conference. Brett Turnbull, Blanco, Chuck, and of course I'd worked with you at some other seminars in the past to develop trial skills and presentation skills. But yeah, it was a really good group of people.
So tell us about your case.
30,000-foot view. This I think a lot of people would refer to as a standard admitted liability car accident case, soft tissue. My client Nick went through the conservative treatment, and he was left in about 2 to 3 dull pain on a normal day in the middle of his back, the thoracic spine. And on a flare-up day, which happened maybe once or twice a month, it would go up to a 6 or a 7 until he got it back under control. I would call it a very typical case. I think a lot of people have that in their inventory. Nick's treating provider originally diagnosed him with compression fractures of the thoracic spine, which he did have. The defense expert, through discovery, went back to an old x-ray he had of his abdomen for an unrelated issue that showed the compression fractures in his thoracic spine were pre-existing. So the defense looked at this as a case of a liar, a cheat, and a fraud, even though Nick, our client, had nothing to do with that. This was just something that the treating provider did not have in front of her when she saw Nick on the day of the collision. So ultimately, they were making the trial about how one thing had been claimed, but the evidence was going to show something very different when it came to Nick's story. They offered enough to put less than a couple $1,000s in Nick's pocket. Nick was always very consistent about it being something that affected his life, affected his family life. It wasn't a lot of pain, but it was enough pain to be very annoying and impacting him, and he wasn't going to walk away for that type of money. So he was a big reason, I think, as well. The belief in him, the way he talked about it, the way he could communicate his pain, that made me confident as well. So a good client is always a good thing.
When I had cases where the defense admitted liability, I always felt a little bit like it took the wind out of my sails, a deliberate tactic.
I was definitely very concerned about motions in limine limiting my ability to talk about even who the driver was, what happened, how hard he was hit, because we don't have any biomechanical experts. They're not calling one. They just want to run this as strictly an admitted liability case where Nick said he had compression fractures and they weren't caused by the accident.
The workshops are kind of originally focused on contested liability cases because the switch from contested to stipulated is a pretty easy switch. So Marcus was sitting there watching the workshop, and he came up to us a couple times going, okay, what do I do in a stipulated case? Like, okay, this piece goes here and this piece goes there. And he just like picked it up quickly, and he just kind of relaxed, and he knew where things fit. And then from then on, he was fine. And obviously when he went into trial, it worked.
A lot of times we're looking at the liability defenses and what some people say as being really bad excuses for why they committed that conduct. That wasn't going to happen in my case. In my case, the guy ran the red light. They said he ran the red light. What am I going to do? I started to find ways, working with Chuck and Blanco and Brett and others, and to get to the jury to hopefully follow and understand that this is a case where they only admit what they have to, and they don't want to be fully responsible for all the damages that have been done. With trial structure, I think the structure is very important, but the internal work that was taught at the seminars was very valuable to me and something that I would recommend to others.
The real power of the structure is in everything that you get in walking your case through the structure.
Yeah, and being empowered to use some of the emotions that maybe we're not comfortable using in a courtroom, I think for a younger attorney like myself, was something that was really good to see from someone, for example, like Blanco, who I think is very gifted, and to be able to pull those emotions out, even in the silences or in the nonverbal presentations that you're doing, I think is something that I was picking up on all the way through, and something I knew I wanted to try and learn, and still learning. So, and I guess what I learned is that a lot of it comes from, that internal place of finding some of those same emotions within your own self or your own life. And you can kind of bring that to life through this structure. Having done, lots of seminars as I was growing up and even before law school, including Reptile and others, this seemed to kind of package it in a way that was consistent with some of the best practices that I had seen. To me, it really was a complete package.
Do you still use the trial structure in your current practice? Do you use the method?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The kernel is something that I'm developing in every case. What are the three primary defenses they're going to say? Usually I come up with better defenses, I feel like, than what the defenses actually end up becoming from the defense expert. But when the defense expert now runs with kind of that hokey or really out there, those types of things would really cause a little bit of fear for me, or frustration even, going to the judge, wanting to get motions to exclude it. Hey, I might still do this in this case if I decide that. But now, as far as depositions and working the case up, give him the rope and let him run with it, because the worse he gets, the better the case potentially could be in the damages section of the trial. I mean, the jury told me afterwards they would have given more. I think I learned I had actually undervalued some of my cases, even in discussions with my clients, by looking at jury verdict research or just looking at standard industry practices in the insurance industry. In the second trial, which was an invasion of privacy case, where a construction worker planted a hidden camera in a family home to film them nude, I went for a much bigger number. I asked for $3.3 million. It was for about a day of footage that they had captured. The jury came back in a very conservative town of about 1,300 people just on the outskirts of Spokane with $1.7 million. To get that justice for that mother and those two children, that was just a really awesome day.
Hold on, wait a minute. Oh, there it is. Hey y'all, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out this one down here or this one over here. And go to our website, trialstructure.com, for tons more content. We've got on demand, we've got webinars and workshops. Thanks for watching. See you soon.